She was grieving, broke, and clueless about computers. Then, a mysterious message revealed her husband had entrusted their future to something called the algorithm and a very traditional Nigerian Ajo savings club. Could she crack the code before time and her hope ran out? She thought the storm was behind her until the man who cast her into the rain stood beneath the sun, watching her rise. Alina had escaped. She had rebuilt, with her daughter in her arms and a future blooming under her feet. She walked beside the man who had given her a second chance. But when her past showed up on a construction site, wearing the same face with a new lie on his tongue, everything she had built was suddenly under threat. Hello family, welcome to True Life Stories. Please subscribe and leave a like for us. It means the world to us. Also, share this video to your friends and loved ones and turn on post notifications so you don't miss future videos from us. Thank you as you do so. Sit back and relax as we dive into the story. The construction site was loud, metal against metal, engines groaning, and voices shouting orders above the languor of progress. Dust hung in the air, swirling in golden shafts of sunlight that pierced through the skeletal structure of a future skyline. Alina stood near the back of the lot beside Mr. Hart, her hands lightly gripping a complexities tablet. The sun pressed hot against her neck, though she was dressed sharply in a cream blouse tucked into black slacks. Her hair was pinned back, neat, controlled. She looked like she belonged. Because she did. She had come far enough now to walk through this world without flinching. She stayed close to Mr. Hart as he gave notes to the lead architect. They were checking the second phase of a commercial tower, one of Hart Development's largest urban projects to date. It wasn't just a formality. He had asked her to accompany him personally. This kind of environment, he'd said that morning over breakfast, will teach you more in 1 hour than any boardroom ever could. She remembered feeling flattered and grateful and determined to prove she deserved the opportunity. But she wasn't expecting him. They were circling the south side of the structure, inspecting support beams, when Alina spotted the workers unloading a shipment of glass panes near the temporary scaffolding. It was casual, just another crew moving heavy material in the background. She wouldn't have noticed him at all if he hadn't looked up. But he did. He looked up and froze mid-motion, a pane of glass halfway to the pallet. A man in a dust-stained vest, leaner than before, rougher but unmistakably familiar. Jordan. Her legs turned to stone, her lungs tightened. He blinked, sweat dripping down his forehead. His mouth parted slowly as if he couldn't quite believe what he was seeing. She tried to turn away. Too late. His eyes widened. He stepped out from behind the truck, calling out, "Alina!" His voice hit her like a slap. Too loud, too raw, too real. She backed away instinctively. Mr. Hart turned sharply at her side, alert in an instant. His eyes flicked from her pale face to the man approaching from the loading area. "Do you know him?" Mr. Hart asked quietly. "Yes," Alina whispered. He's Jordan, Mr. Hart didn't need the rest of the sentence. He understood. Jordan was moving toward them now, his hard hat in one hand, disbelief etched across his face. "Alina, wait." She turned. She ran not with panic, but with certainty. Mr. Hart followed her immediately, waving off the architect with a glance. They passed stacks of lumber and rows of cinder blocks as they moved toward the waiting SUV. Alina's heartbeat thudded in her ears. It was like running through memory. The night it all broke, the rain, the cold, her baby against her chest. The sound of the door locking behind her. She didn't stop until she was inside the vehicle. Mr. Hart slipped in beside her. The driver closed the door and the engine came to life. Only then did she breathe, but her hands were shaking. Outside through the tinted window, she saw Jordan stop a few feet away, confusion morphing into something darker. His mouth twisted, his jaw clenched. Mr. Hart didn't speak. He simply placed his hand over hers. "Steady, grounding. Take us home," he said to the driver. As the vehicle rolled away, Alina looked down at her lap. The past wasn't behind her. Not yet. It had found its way to the surface, and this time it wouldn't go quietly. The morning after the site visit was muted, Alina sat at the edge of the breakfast nook, a mug of untouched tea between her hands. Sophia babbled softly in her high chair across the table, smearing mashed banana on her tray, utterly unaware that the air around her mother had changed. Alina's thoughts spun endlessly. He saw me. He spoke my name. She hadn't said anything to Elsie yet. Didn't want to alarm her. And Mr. Hart had kept his distance after they got home. Respectful as always. He knew she needed space. Still, she couldn't shake the tightness in her chest. Not fear, not quite. Something more like foreboding. Then just past noon, it happened. The intercom buzzed twice. Mrs. Elsie answered from the main hallway. Alina watched from the corner of the kitchen as the woman's spine stiffened. A moment later she walked in briskly, her apron folded over one arm. "There's someone at the gate," Elsie said carefully. "He says he's your husband. Says he wants to talk." The mug in Kalina's hands trembled slightly. Mrs. Elsie didn't pressure her. She just stood quietly, her voice a little more gentle. "He's not coming in, Mr. Hart made sure of that. But if you want to speak to him from behind the gate, he's waiting." Alina stood without answering. By the time she reached the front driveway, Mr. Hart was already there, arms crossed, watching the main gate from a distance like a silent guard. He looked over his shoulder as she approached, but didn't say a word. She walked slowly toward the entrance, heart thumping, stomach churning. There he was, Jordan, standing just outside the tall black bars, wearing jeans that were too clean for a construction worker and a white shirt with sleeves rolled to the elbows. In his hand, like some kind of joke, was a bouquet of supermarket roses. "Alina," he breathed when he saw her. "Oh, thank God," she said nothing. He stepped forward, fingers wrapping around the gate bars. "I've been looking for you everywhere. You disappeared." "I had to," she replied coldly. "You left me no choice. I made a mistake," he said quickly, voice breaking just enough to sound practiced. "I was scared. I wasn't thinking. I thought you were trying to trap me with the baby. But I was wrong. I know that now." Kalina's jaw clenched. "Don't do that," she said. "Don't act like I ran off without reason. You kicked me out with nothing in the middle of the night in the rain." He looked down, shaking his head. "I've been carrying that guilt every day since, not enough to come looking. Not until you saw me at the site." That made him flinch. Alina folded her arms, putting steel in her spine. "You didn't come here to apologize. You came here because I looked like I was doing well. You came because I wasn't desperate anymore." "I came," Jordan said, stepping closer, voice tightening, "because I still love you." "No, you don't." She stared him down, her voice calm now like ice. "You loved control. You loved the feeling of being above me, when I needed you most. You discarded me like trash. You don't love me, Jordan. You just hate that I learned how to live without you." His expression changed. The sorrow twisted into something else. Bitterness, ego, the mask slipping. "You think you're better than me now," he spat. "Because you live in some rich man's house. You think that's real. You think he actually sees you." Alina didn't blink. "He sees me better than you ever did." Jordan pressed his face against the bars, jaw tight. "I want my family back." "There is no your family," she said. "That ended the night you locked the door." She turned, walked away. He shouted after her, "You will regret this, Elena." She didn't respond. Mr. Hart was waiting 10 steps behind her. "You okay?" he asked softly. She nodded, but deep down, something tightened in her gut, because Jordan hadn't come for forgiveness. He had come to reclaim what he believed was his, and men like that didn't walk away quietly. The mansion was quiet again, too quiet. Alina checked the nursery door 3 times that evening before turning in for the night. She adjusted Sophia's blanket, watched her chest rise and fall, stroked her tiny curls with trembling fingers. She had told herself Jordan's threat was empty, desperate words from a man whose control had slipped. But deep down, something about his eyes at the gate, wide burning cornered, had lodged in her. He wasn't finished. She could feel it. Mr. Hart had already called in additional security. Cameras were reviewed. The gate guards rotated the estate perimeter, double-checked. Still, she slept lightly that night. Her phone on the nightstand, baby monitor app glowing softly beside it. The next day passed uneventfully. Alina tried to focus on her work. She organized deliveries, responded to partnership emails for Sophia and me, watched a video of a social media influencer unpacking one of her diaper bags and calling it the soft armor of single motherhood. It should have filled her with joy. Instead, her nerves buzzed. That evening, just after 700 p.m., she stepped out of the shower and reached for her phone. One notification, baby monitor disconnected. Her heart stopped. She checked the Wi-Fi. Full signal. She rushed to the nursery. The door was open. The crib was empty, the window open. "No," she whispered, breathing. She bolted down the hallway, nearly colliding with Mrs. Elsie. "Sophia's gone." Alina choked out. "She's not in her crib." "She's not. He took her." "I know he did." Elsie turned pale. "Stay here. I'll call Mr. Hart." But Alina was already moving, running down the stairs, past the dining hall, through the back exit into the garden, barefoot, robe flying behind her. Sophia, no answer, only wind and rustling leaves. 10 minutes later, the estate was in full lockdown. Mr. Hart had arrived within moments, flanked by 2 private security agents. He listened without interrupting as Alina described the monitor disconnect, the open window, the emptiness of the crib. She was shaking, pacing, hands clutched over her heart like she was trying to hold it in. "He said he'd take her," she kept repeating. "He said I'd regret this." Mr. Hart didn't argue, didn't try to calm her. He believed her immediately. His voice was cool and clear. "Get eyes on every exit," he ordered. "I want the external cameras replayed frame by frame. Check for any vehicle loitering near the Southern Service Road." "Yes, sir," said the guard, already dialing. Alina gripped his sleeve. "I can't breathe," she whispered. "Damon, I can't. She's my baby." He caught her, held her firmly by the arms. "Listen to me. You need to stay grounded right here with me. We are going to bring her back." Her knees buckled. He caught her again. "Don't let him hurt her," she begged. "Don't let him take her from me." "I won't," Mr. Hart said. "Not now. Not ever." 30 minutes later, they had footage. A claw resolution clip from a service cam showed Jordan's pickup truck, unmistakable, slipping onto the old access road behind the eastern fence. He'd used the temporary scaffold gate. Somehow, he knew the weak points, knew how to avoid the guards. He timed it perfectly. Back inside, Alina sat at the edge of the nursery bed, arms wrapped around herself, rocking slightly, whispering to no one. Mr. Hart re-entered, phone still in hand. I know where he's gone, he said. She looked up. Where? A roadside motel near the edge of town. He used to frequent it for side jobs. My team pinged his phone's location. She stood instantly. I'm going with you. No, he said gently but firmly. You need to stay here in case he calls, in case Sophia is brought back while we move. She clenched her fists. I can't sit here while she's out there. He placed both hands on her shoulders. You gave me your trust once, he said. I need it again now. Their eyes locked. Pain, rage, fear, hope. Then she nodded, and Mr. Hart was gone. The motel was exactly the kind of place a man like Jordan would choose. Off the main road, hidden behind a rundown gas station, a neon vacancy sign blinked half-lit beside an old ice machine and cracked pavement. 2 rows of rooms faced the parking lot, most of them with curtains drawn. Only a few cars sat parked in front of faded door numbers. Mr. Hart's black SUV rolled to a stop in silence. The security detail flanked the vehicle before it fully parked. Moving like shadows, he stepped out calmly, dressed not in his usual suit, but a dark jacket, plain shirt and boots. No fanfare, no business persona. Tonight he wasn't a CEO, he was a man reclaiming what mattered. His voice was low. Direct room 12. He checked in under a fake name. Hasn't left in hours. The guard on the right nodded. Thermal scan confirms 2 heat signatures inside. 1 adult, 1 child. Stationary. Mr. Hart's jaw tightened. Sophia, he said. He walked up the stairwell himself, hands at his sides. No hesitation. At room 12, he paused only once, then knocked. 3 sharp raps. No answer. He knocked again, harder. Still silence. Then from inside, movement. A thud, fabric rustling. He heard a familiar voice muffled. What the hell? Who? Jordan? Mr. Hart spoke clearly through the door. Open it or I open it for you. More shuffling. Then the lock clicked. The door creaked open slowly. Jordan's face appeared pale and sweaty, disheveled, eyes wild. What are you doing here? He barked. You can't. Mr. Hart stepped forward and shoved the door wide. Jordan stumbled back. She's my kid. I have rights. The room was small, dimly lit. Clothes and empty snack wrappers littered the floor, and there on the far bed sat Sophia, wrapped in the same floral blanket from her crib, awake, silent, eyes wide with confusion. Mr. Hart didn't speak. He crossed the room and picked her up without a word. She clung to him instantly, recognizing his face, burying her cheek into his collar. He rattled her gently, one hand on the back of her head. Behind him, Jordan raged. You can't just take her. This is kidnapping. I'll call the cops. You rich bastard think you own everything. Mr. Hart turned slowly, child in his arms, voice like iron. You don't know what you've just done. I'm her father, Jordan shouted. You're a threat, Mr. Hart said, to her safety, to her future. You were given a second chance when you left them behind. You chose to ruin it. Jordan lunged. Mr. Hart didn't flinch. One of the guards stepped between them and pinned Jordan against the peeling wallpaper in seconds. Touch me again, Mr. Hart said, and you'll leave here in cuffs or worse. Sirens howled in the distance. Lights began flashing through the window. You're going to jail. Jordan spat, eyes flaring. Mr. Hart turned to the door. Yes, you are. Alina was waiting at the mansion gate when they returned. The SUV barely stopped before she rushed forward, arms out, hair wild around her face. Sophia reached toward her mother with a tiny whimper. Alina broke into a sob, scooping her into her arms and clutching her so close it looked like she might never let go. You're safe, she whispered. Mama's got you. I've got you, Mr. Hart stood beside them, watching the reunion with a sharp ache in his chest. Sophia's small fingers tugged at her mother's collar. Alina kissed every inch of her face through tears. Then she looked up at him. Thank you, she breathed. Thank you for bringing her back. He didn't say anything, but in his eyes was a promise. No one would ever hurt them again. The courthouse was quiet that morning. Gray clouds loomed over the building, but the light inside was steady, filtered through tall windows onto clean marble floors. The scent of polished wood and old law books clung to the air. Alina stood outside the courtroom doors, dressed in a fitted navy dress and low heels. Her natural curls framed her face, and a fine gold chain held the locket she wore. Inside it, a photo of Sophia. It wasn't armor, it was truth. She didn't come to beg, she came to end something. Mr. Hart was there beside her, tailored and silent, offering his strength without words. He hadn't pushed her to pursue legal action. He hadn't interfered. But when she told him she was filing for divorce, he made sure she had the best attorney in the city. And today was the final hearing, the official ending. I'm not nervous, she said suddenly, her voice steady. I know, he replied, voice calm. I thought I'd feel sick. That's how you know you've already let go. She looked up at him and smiled, tired but real. Then the doors opened. The courtroom was simple. No audience, just the judge, 2 attorneys, Abalef and Jordan. He was seated at the left, hair shorter than before, jaw unshaven and eyes bitter. No remorse, no apology, just a quiet fury simmering under the surface. Alina didn't look at him, not once. She faced the judge, answered every question clearly. Yes, Your Honor, the marriage is irreparable. Yes, I am the sole caregiver of the child. Yes, I am financially independent. No, I am not seeking spousal support. Yes, I am requesting full custody with supervised visitation to be decided pending psychological evaluation. Her voice never trembled. Jordan scoffed once, muttered something under his breath. His lawyer didn't even try to argue. The judge's decision was swift and clear. The court grants this divorce in full. Custody awarded to the mother. The father is ordered to attend counseling and may petition for supervised visitation in 1 year. Contingent on behavioral review. The gavel fell. Alina exhaled deeply, so deeply her lungs felt brand new. It was over. The chain was broken. Outside the courthouse, she didn't cry. She didn't celebrate either. She just stood in the breeze, head tilted back, letting the cool wind brush over her face. Mr. Hart joined her quietly, holding a folded coat. "Are you cold?" "No," she said. "I'm free." He nodded once, watching her. Then it was a good day. She turned to face him fully. "I didn't survive him just to be safe," she said. "I want to thrive for Sophia, for me, and you will." He said, "What's next?" She didn't hesitate. "Sophia and me. I want to take it from a small brand to something real. Something that reaches women who think they're alone." Mr. Hart smiled, subtle but proud. "I've already scheduled a meeting with our media advisor. You're going to need press coverage, distribution partners, and funding. I don't want a handout." She said. "You won't get one," he replied. "But you will get someone who believes in you." She looked at him for a long moment. "I don't know how to thank you," she whispered. "Then don't," he said softly. "Just don't disappear." That night, back in the nursery, Alina sat beside Sophia's crib, watching her daughter sleep. Her chest rose and fell in a rhythm that anchored her to the present. She reached into her pocket and pulled out the stamped divorce document. Not as a trophy, as a tombstone. That chapter was dead. The girl who had begged at the gate was gone. What stood in her place was a woman who had been tested and never once broke. Tomorrow would be the beginning of something new, and this time she would write every word. Spring arrived gently that year. The air was scented with blossoms, and the trees around the estate filled with new green. Morning sunlight streamed across the garden path, casting gold on the stone benches and hedges. The fountain that once whispered behind Alina on the worst night of her life now hummed in celebration. It had been nearly a year since she'd first stood at the gate, since she had asked, voice breaking in the rain, "Can I clean your mansion for a meal?" Today she stood in the same spot, but not as a beggar. As a woman who had built something. "Mama, twirl again." Alina turned, laughing as Sophia squealed in delight. She held the hem of her soft ivory dress and spun once more, the layers catching the air like petals. Sophia clapped from her spot beside Mrs. Elsie, who sat proudly in the front row of white chairs lining the garden aisle. Alina knelt beside her daughter, smoothing a curl from her forehead. "You ready, my flower girl?" Sophia nodded wide-eyed. "We're getting married today." Alina chuckled. "Not you, baby. We are." She stood and looked toward the archway woven with jasmine and white roses. Beyond it stood Damon Hart, the man who had opened his door, and never once made her feel like she had to earn the right to stay. He stood in a dark suit, crisp and classic, no tie, just a bannière tucked near his lapel. But it wasn't the clothes that made her breath catch. It was the way he looked at her, like nothing had ever made more sense than this moment. The ceremony was small, intentional, just a few close friends from the Sophia and Me board, Mrs. Elsie, Damon's business partner, and the staff who had become family. There were no vows written on paper. They spoke from where it mattered most. Alina's voice trembled slightly as she began. "I never thought I would say this. Surrounded by beauty and love, for so long I believed I was disposable. Like safety was for other people. But you gave me space to breathe again and then to dream again. You showed me that I was never broken. I was just never seen until you." Damon's voice was soft and steady as he replied, "I had walls. I had systems. Everything worked. Everything was safe. But none of it meant anything until I heard you speak at the gate. You weren't begging. You were surviving. And I've spent every day since realizing that I didn't take you in to save you. I took you in because I knew you would save me." Sophia clapped again, beaming, not understanding all the words, but feeling the truth in the air. When they kissed, it wasn't the grand cinematic kind. It was something quieter, deeper, like two people who had earned peace. That evening, as guests departed and stars blinked to life above the estate, Alina stood on the balcony outside their shared room. Her veil fluttered behind her. She leaned against the railing, watching the world that once felt unreachable. Damon joined her, a glass of champagne in one hand, the other slipping easily around her waist. "Thinking?" he asked. Remembering, she said. She turned to look at him. "Do you know what day it is tomorrow?" He raised an eyebrow. 1 year, she said, "to the day since I stood at your gate." He nodded slowly. "I remember the rain. I remember your eyes. You looked at me like I was a person," she smiled. "Not a burden. You were never a burden." He said. "You were a spark." Alina leaned into him, her head resting against his chest. Below them in the nursery, Sophia slept soundly, safe, loved, home. And this time, the mansion wasn't just filled with light. It was filled with life, with family. 3 years later, the mansion hadn't changed much. The garden still bloomed with jasmine and magnolia, the fountain still whispered softly in the courtyard, and the soft buzz of life still hummed through the halls. Only now it had grown richer, fuller. Inside the glass-walled sunroom, Sophia sat cross-legged on the carpet with a sketchbook in her lap. Crayons were scattered across the floor, and her brow furrowed in fierce concentration. Damon sat nearby reading from a tablet, but watching her with quiet amusement. "She's drawing the company logo again," he said over his shoulder. Alina appeared in the doorway, her silhouette framed by sunlight and success. A fitted linen jumpsuit, gold hoops, barefoot, and in complete command of her world. "She's practicing," Alina said. "She says she wants to run Sophia and me one day." Damon chuckled. "She'll probably take my job too." Alina crossed to him, leaned down and kissed his cheek. "Don't tempt her," she whispered. The brand had grown beyond what she'd imagined. Sophia and me now supported single mothers nationwide with resource kits, childcare grants, flexible job training, and even transitional housing partnerships. It wasn't a business anymore. It was a movement, a way to build bridges where other systems had built walls. And it was hers, built with pain and grace, and people who chose to believe in her when she couldn't believe in herself. That afternoon, a knock came at the front gate. It was raining softly this time. Through the camera, Alina saw a woman standing alone, thin coat, no umbrella, holding the hand of a small boy who stared wide-eyed at the lights of the estate. Her voice on the intercom was barely a whisper. "I'm sorry to bother you. I don't want money. I just thought maybe someone here might listen." Alina didn't hesitate. She pressed the gate release, then turned to Damon and smiled softly. "I'll be right back," she said. "I think we have a guest." She stepped outside into the rain, not to run from it, but to offer shelter, because she knew what it was like to stand at the gate, soaking, afraid and unseen, and now it was her turn to open the door. We have come to the end of the story. I hope you enjoyed it. Leave a like and subscribe to my YouTube channel for more interesting stories.